Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Later. I'm your host, Marina. This is the show where sketch teachers and writers break down SNL sketches so we can learn about the structure that goes into writing sketch comedy. So I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, author of the Substack, My Comedy Fantasy. It is Madeline Baldanzi.
Hello!
Hello, Madeline. And with us today is a very special return guest. He's a stand-up comedian, a writer and director, and he's also the host of the incredible podcast Copaganda, which has just returned. Please welcome Niccolo Aeed. Nico, welcome.
Thank you for having me back. It's so fun to be here.
Oh, I'm
Good to see you guys.
So happy you're back. I think that when you were on the episode before, we didn't even know that SNL UK was going to be a thing. So now here it is, and we're going to talk about it. So let's just go ahead and do our initial temperature check. I'm gonna start with giving my temperature check, which is I kind of love this episode. It really made me laugh a lot. I thought there was things that are notable, or rather noteworthy in that they merit notes on many of the sketches, but a lot of it made me laugh. I really enjoyed it, and I found it really fun. Anyway, that's my little temperature check. How about you guys?
This was the first episode where I felt like they might be kind of developing a little bit of something that they're doing themselves. Mm-hmm. But my main takeaway from this episode was they really were hitting the heightening hard. Mm-hmm. They were leaning on heightening so much in this episode where it made me wonder for the first time, is that kind of this more British sensibility and point of view that they're bringing in? Maybe. So yeah, that was kind of my main temperature of it. It was lots of heightening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I liked it. I was pretty charmed by it. I feel like I liked the sketches in the beginning, and then I didn't love all of the sketches. I think some things could be improved, but all in all, pretty charmed. And also it felt very British. I know our good friend Shem thinks the show is not British enough. He's a cartoon Eeyore come to life. I thought there were constant Britishisms in this that I didn't understand, that I was chuffed by.
Oh,
his wife is at a hen do. There felt like a lot of British specifics in this that I, whenever I watch anything from the UK, I kind of exotify it a little bit, and so this had a lot of that in there that I could enjoy, even if I didn't get the references.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I'm so excited to discuss all of these things. Yeah, we do have to, we should have Shem as our correspondent, and we should periodically tap him in and give us a little weather forecast. And
live from the haters.
Yeah, live from the haters. Or maybe not. We don't know. We don't know what he thinks.
We don't know.
Shem, we're going to ask you. But anyway, let's go ahead and just jump into this episode, starting with the cold open. So this was the barbecue where Melania Trump shows up to, and kind of keeps insisting, basically using bonding games to insist that she doesn't actually know Jeffrey Epstein. So, riffing off of a current events thing that happened, here too. So anyway, curious to hear what you guys thought about this one, what jumped out to you. Yeah.
Wanna go? Okay. I enjoyed it. I mean, I thought it was funny. It had a clear game. It was funny. It had a clear game. The only thing is, it's not as surprising as the real thing, which is crazy. It was kind of just a naturalistic response. Wait, why are you intentionally bringing up the Epstein files again? And she's definitely in them. She's not in them. She is in the Epstein files.
Yes,
so that's funny, but the real event felt funnier than the sketch itself. But I think structurally it worked.
Yeah, I had a similar feeling where structurally this was tidy, but it felt a little uninteresting to me, maybe. Yeah, Madeline, what did you think?
So another recurring theme for me in this episode was justifications. And I feel like we weirdly haven't talked about justifications that much on this podcast or show. And I understand, so I think the reason why the weird thing is happening could have made this a much stronger opening with a much tighter game. And I get that part of it is that she kind of popped up out of nowhere to say this random thing that nobody asked her to say, right? That's the justification for why she was at this just
like barbecue
I
in
guess
some
the
London
weather
suburb.
in Britain had been warm.
Yeah,
last week.
climate change, guys. We're feeling it too.
But I was just like that wasn't quite enough, or the connection wasn't made quite hard enough for me. So I kept feeling when I was watching it like, but why is she here? Why this place? And I think they had just hit that justification a little bit harder of like, oh, I've been all around London and the world. You're the last stop. This little barbecue. I need to tell, right? Like if they just like kind of hit that, then she could have like played the beats of like convincing them just a little bit more. The whiff of justification would have really helped this for me.
Right. Yeah. I think there was also an interesting additional justification they dropped where it was like, this is what happens when I can't remember the name of the store, opens in the neighborhood.
Nearby. Yeah.
Yeah.
That did escape me.
Right. It didn't, yeah, the reference escaped me, but also I was like, it feels like it didn't, even if I think even if we had gotten the reference, it didn't seem like they were really doing much or would go on to do much with it. So I do think that like, and I think that some of the moves were a little surprising. Sorry, some of the jokes were a little surprising. The moves were all kind of the same. It was kind of lateral move. And over time, it sort of adds up to a little bit of heightening just because she's kind of persisting over time. And that sort of, for the specific idea, lends to a heightening feeling. But it was pretty easy to get ahead of, I think. And I think that this one, yeah, again, really clean structurally, but just not maybe the most interesting, I would say.
I also thought her costume was fascinating and felt very not American because
interesting.
She had clearly fake breasts, right? Like comically fake. And it was cheap looking. And I don't I think
you think they're insulting our first lady? You think our first lady has better style than these Brits are giving her credit for?
But I think
watch
on SNL,
the documentary. You'll learn something.
In SNL USA, it would have been a more faithful to reality costume, and it was kind of fun that it was a bit sillier.
Yeah,
that felt unique, I think, and not in a like they don't have the budget way, in an intentional way.
It's funny. My impulse was, oh, this isn't a budget. It is a budget thing. But I don't know. I think we'll find out. Because there was some impressive, I assume, high budget things that were later on, but we'll get more into that later. But yeah, for now, anything else about the only other thing I would actually mention about this cold open was that the second line joke, the like, never have I ever accidentally booked a neo-Nazi in a music festival, whatever. I think they kind of got away with it because the Melania Trump arrival was so clear, but I do think that is the kind of joke before the reveal that your teachers are often encouraging you to avoid because you just kind of want to get into the thing a little faster.
I was confused.
I did a quick Wikipedia. It's a reference to Kanye West.
Yeah.
So it was another event that was happening in the news over there.
But so I thought that was the game, and it made Melania's reveal more confusing.
You don't want to pique your audience's interest in a thing you're not going to follow up on.
Yeah.
Which is often why they say, like, the first thing you say to the audience is kind of a promise sometimes.
Yeah.
If we were all chastity teachers, we would say the first line you say to the audience is a promise. And so if you lead their attention somewhere else, it becomes distracting.
For me, I also think it made me think like, oh, is he playing a specific person that I just don't know or whatever? And then it, again, became clear eventually. But yeah, as Nico said, like you are sort of like throwing off your audience a little bit or confusing them a little bit. And it's even worse if what you're showing them is more interesting than what you wind up doing. At this point, at least it resolved into a clear place. But yeah, I think that's just something to flag ahead of time. All right, awesome. Anything else about that one or shall we move on? All right, let's move on quickly to the monologue, which at first I only am bringing it up. There wasn't really a game. It was really more of like kind of a stand-up set, if anything. I will say that my initial response to the monologue was like a little irritation with this host because I was like, this feels sort of like old timey, like women be like blah blah blah, and I was like, this is pretty well-worn territory. It's like kind of whatever.
His wife's a hen do, and he's
Okay.
paying too much money for the calligraphy. That's exactly what he sounds like. I nailed that accent, guys.
It was perfect. I thought he was here for a second. If you're listening to this in podcast form, Jack Whitehall is here. But yeah, I wrote down hen do. This is my second stag. I was ultimately charmed by the idea that that this is his bachelor party. I thought that was kind of a fun. I kind of came around at the end where I was like, okay, this is a little charming, but I felt a little annoyed by the vibe going into it, which is why I was even more impressed with the fact that I wound up being so on board with this show by the end.
Well, I think he kind of announced it, because this isn't. I guess this guy's not really big at Jack Whitehall, not big in the U.S. He's like a real British panel show dude.
This is the first.
He was kind of like, I'm a mid comedian, and that kind of sold it with his stand up. But it did make me appreciate the show more, because it wasn't. He was a fine player in all the sketches.
Yeah,
and the show didn't rely on his star power in a way that maybe made the sketches more fun.
He's very, very famous there, and like a very big deal, and a very big deal stand up. But it was, I thought, I actually quite dislike him for many reasons.
Oh, interesting.
But I think that it was great to have a host that would never host here.
Yeah.
But was still a big star there. I think that helped.
What's your beef? Just to say it out loud on the air. What's your beef with Jack Whitehall?
He's like the son of a really famous agent and is extremely wealthy.
A Nepo baby.
And I don't like his stand-up.
For
all the reasons Marina just
right. Okay, I was gonna say, if he is, you're right. That yes, I can. And some of the jokes were funny, but the whole thing was framed so much with like women be all like this, and I was
women be spending money on weddings.
I don't even think he's funny like on Big Fat Quiz of the Year. You know, like he's never my favorite on those.
Yeah, so
I do like. I sometimes think we overestimate British comedians, because the ones that come here are usually like so good they made it across the ocean or whatever. But it's nice to know that like England also has made comedians who are doing jokes you've totally heard before.
It's funny because I like he was in a sitcom that I really like, and he's really good in it. And I thought his act, like when he was just being a more committed actor in some of these sketches,
I think
he was great. Yeah,
I don't agree with it. I mean, I think he was a committed player in each one of these. Things.
I like his acting more than his stand-up.
Speaking of which, let's go ahead and jump into that first sketch, right? Because so this was actually, sorry, yes, I was mixed up. This is the Gary Thomas being visited by his childhood soccer coach, right? So soccer player being visited by his soccer coach. Based on a real video, which a couple of people very kindly sent to me to make sure that I had context. And I waited till after I watched the whole episode before I watched the video. So I kind of went in without knowing it. I'd love to hear, what did you guys think about this one?
I think you said earlier, Madeline, justification. We haven't talked about justification, but this one felt like I could use more of a justification. I didn't know the reference, but it felt like something I'd seen before. That like the sports player gets visited by his old coach. I think I've seen that trope, even if I don't know this thing. But I thought the idea that like he thinks everyone's dead is funny, but I don't know why he thinks everyone is dead exactly. And I wish, instead of making more people he thought was dead, they dug into the first mysterious death a little bit more.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Oh, I thought you were dead," and the next person says something like, "I just subbed after that police investigation," which would make it seem like something had happened to that coach before. But I could use more like, why is this? Why does he think everyone's dead? Like, what's that story? And then digging in more of the specifics of that first person.
Yes.
Because they didn't know why he thought everyone was dead. And I feel like things can get funnier when there's more of a emotional connection. Do you know what I mean? Like, you lied to me all this time? Like, this is actually making me feel quite sad, or whatever it is. But I feel like he's justification and then leaning into the first hope and the emotional relationship there.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Madeline? What did you think of this one?
Yeah, it heightened really high, which is nice. But I was delighted to see Aewade featured doing a really funny character. I was excited for her. But writing wise, I just agree with Nico. I'm not sure like why Dobby is funnier. I think the second beat certainly wasn't funnier, right? Like, oh, was it supposed to be his wife who he also thought was dead? Or no, the substitute.
It's a substitute teacher
right?
who also disappeared. Yeah.
I'm like, I think sometimes if you're writing something and you've got the second beat and you're heightening, like, is it really funnier? Ask yourself that. Is this beat funnier than the first beat or more surprising? Because I really don't think that it was, because what are you really, like, what idea are you really heightening here? He thinks everyone is dead. But then there's like a funnier, more surprising way to explore that.
Yes.
Other than like lowering the stakes of the person.
Because he doesn't. Dobby is somebody like they heighten in a way because they more random people and his dad get shown up, but not heighten in the sense that like, what does this mean for this character?
Yes.
What would be the fallout for it?
There's no heightening random is never going to be as funny as heightening a specific, because random can be anything, so it will never be so surprising.
I think that I totally agree with you guys. I think that my thought for this one was that they agreed that they could have just like pinned down. Actually, let me step back. I think it was like a floating beats problem a little bit. Like they were all sort of it's like somebody sort of turned off the gravity on all the beats, sort of like went up into the sky and got like a little bit jumbled around, because I think there were sort of two unusual directions you could go in. One was his big reaction to like playing with that big reaction he has to seeing that this person is alive, and then you could again, like you said, sort of like lower the relevance of people, but keeping his reaction big and the same. The other direction is all of the people like either digging into sort of the story of like why, as Nico said, like why you thought this person was dead, like all of that, like what it means. And I agree, Nico, that I think either the justification, and also like this is one where I would have considered, if it is about like why he thinks this person is dead or why he thinks all these people are dead, I would maybe have dialed up the voice of reason in him a little bit, potentially for that version of it. Because I think that basically after having watched the original video, I will say I was struck by, I think that if I were writing this, the thing that would have really stuck out to me was what a bizarre reaction it is that he looks at this man literally as though he's just seen a ghost, and then keeps repeating, "I thought you were dead. Somebody told me you were dead." And it's like so like that is it. I know this like genre of like reunion, but I've never seen like, "I thought you were dead. Oh my gosh, I thut you were dead." That is the direction I would have probably been most interested.
Because I feel like the things I wanted them to heighten, it was like, but they made a documentary about it. Everyone was talking about it during the pandemic. Or like, I saw you murdered before my own eyes.
Right. Like, they were interrogating me for 24 hours. Right? Like, I think there was something
Your wife went to prison. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then the genre of like cute reunion video, and if you keep the brought back to life person just reacting like, I knew you would succeed, then his reaction will continue to be funny and surprising.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so even as I was hidden underground all those years, I knew. I
knew you'd be great at football.
I knew the bunker that I finally came out of a few weeks ago, when they, when
as the squids exploded on my chest,
and
you watched me die, I was like, this kid is gonna be a good football player.
Right. I think that that's like the part that was so interesting. So you can kind of hearing that, you can kind of see why the Dobby element of it was like a little less interesting. I do, again, think that there is a version of this that's just the character reacting with overwhelm and delight with like at all these people he thought were dead. Like, I think there is a way to stitch that together and explore that. But I think that the idea of like, why did he think this guy was dead is just so interesting that it sort of harkens back to what Nico said earlier, that like you are making a promise to your audience with the first thing that you laugh at. And again, like this is also in the original thing that he's like, "I thought you were dead." But that is so juicy and compelling that it felt weird to pivot away from that for it sounds like all three of us, really. Yeah.
I'm still charmed by this idea. I mean, I think they could have been better, but I'm charmed by each of these things.
Totally. And I think that's true for so many of the sketches that, well, certainly for me for this episode, but just in general, like when we're talking about sketches and noting them, it's not because they're like, well, some of them aren't great, but like often it's just because there's a way to like circle and explore like what is great about it, what's fun about it even more, to have more fun with the idea. But it really was, I did think it was really fun to watch still. All right, should we move on to the second one? Okay, so this was the soccer sketch where they're all, you know, paired with the kids, and one guy wants to switch his kids. This one's really interesting, Madeline. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I
just sort of feel like, in terms of freshness of ideas, like, if you watch a lot of football, you're used to seeing the kids come out with them in the tunnel, and like sometimes they're shuffling, and you see that on TV a lot. And I just feel like I want to swap kids is like the first idea. I think, like, I was delighted by the fact that someone was making a sketch about this, but it just felt like the most basic idea version of it. And I found the rest of it like unfunny, and I'd actually like to hear more from you guys, because I think maybe I'm too deep into football to like fully explore my own feelings on this.
I didn't know about this trope, but I feel like I can get on board pretty quickly. It's supposed to be some sweet thing. This one made me laugh. And thinking about justifications, I think that where it felt like a little justification week, like, why does this kid suck versus another kid suck? And they feel like, you know, you don't want to be that mean when you have kids in front of you, but like it suffered for being a little mean, for being a little less mean. But when it started working to me was when they said like, but this kid's definitely like gotten adolescence vibe. You know, that was a real fun specific and like a real great thing. But like, and I wonder if like we had a justification for why the kid sucked earlier on, we could heighten and play off of that. And I also liked when everyone started getting on board with the game, where they were like, no, you're right. These kids do sometimes suck. I'm glad we switched.
I got the worst one.
I liked those aspects of it, but I wish that there was more of a justification for that.
Yeah, that would have been more fun if it was just everyone on board right away.
I agree, because it was so, as the world expanded, and that they were like, last time I did, you wanted to switch kids last week, and I did, you know, that was so, what if we just randomly put kids in? And this is generous of me to say, because I had the best one. Those were all really fun. I think that this one ran into a logistical problem for me, and Nico, you touched on it. Yes.
Is it because the kids aren't responding?
Yeah, it's kind of
so weird, right?
It's a combination.
They didn't understand the adolescence reference.
No, I think to me that's part of it. I think to me it's like, A, the kids aren't responding, and B, having the kids there puts a little bit of a cap on what they're probably going to do and say. I'm really curious what a version of this would, and I even think when he's like, this kid's messed up, and they zoomed in on that one kid, like, even though it's obviously like they obviously didn't cast the kid to be the messed up one. Like, it just, there's something that felt like it kind of seized in me a little bit. Just like, ooh, I don't want to like look at a kid and hear somebody say like, this is a bad one. It felt like that felt a little funky. But I think that more importantly though, I think that I don't think that they were willing to go to as many fun places as they would have if the kids weren't right there. And I agree that the kids being non-responsive was a problem, aside from the like ethics of saying mean things about kids who are standing next to you. I think that even if it's not logistically how it usually goes, I would be curious about how this would look if they sent the kids ahead or something like that. I know this is a problem, right? Or if there is a way for them to kind of shoot it so that it's all happening above the kids' heads or something.
I think it's weird. This is a weird, I think it's going to be a weird contradiction where it's like, I think, and sometimes as for a sketch, to get the audience to laugh, people need to feel safe and like everyone's okay. Versus that, like, if you're going to say a mean thing, you need to say it to somebody's face.
Right.
And it's so funny hearing me say it to a kid's face. And it's like fucked up. And so like, you can't do those midway. If you're going to be messed up, be messed up. I don't know how you talk to kids about that, but sometimes people make it work. Good Boys is a movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there are ways to make it work, but I think you have to be, sometimes there's a contradiction between like making the audience feel kind of like everyone's cool, no one's feelings are hurt, versus like being as mean as you can to someone's face.
Then what I would have done, and then I think that's getting into the problem Madeline described, which is I'm being unresponsive. I would have said, give those kids a few lines so that they're involved in the scene. Because I think that I totally hear you that like, because I do think even if you were willing to be like saying like something, let's say, imagine like something truly awful that you would say about a kid standing next to you, like something that like the kid really couldn't shrug off or something like that. That was specific to like them and how they specifically look, right? Like, yeah. I think that if you were to do that, it would feel bad, right? Like it would just feel bad to hear. If you have the kid be like say something about like, I don't know, I whatever it is, like I'm selling your autograph or like I'm gonna blah blah blah, whatever. That at least is something that they can play with and like.
Well, yeah, again, that comes down to the justification about why they don't like the kids too,
Yes.
right? Like, I don't like this one because he keeps like eating his boogers, right? Like, I don't like this one because like there's an action that you can do, you can play off of, and the kids can be maybe more part of the scene.
Right. I think that this one ran into a kind of logistical problem that got in the way of specificity. And I think I was very interested in this one because I think it's such a specific issue it fell into. Because I actually like the premise. This didn't feel super first idea to me, I have to say. Like, I think I really liked this idea of like, I got the bad kid, but I think that just any specific that they did have felt fun, but I just wanted more. I think I just wanted sort of more from it. Or even if it was like other people coming out and like the manager or whatever coming out and trying to like break up the fight of like, well, I told you last time you said you didn't want this kind of kid, so here you go. Like, something like that. Yeah. Other thoughts that came to mind?
Oh, I wish there was like a subgame of a guy who's had an Italian accent. He should have had an Italian kid.
Oh, yeah.
So Italian kid get all to do a terrible Italian accent.
Right?
Madeline doesn't like that. No, everyone's doing a bad Italian accent in my mind. Sketch.
But I do think basically just more specificity would have made this one more fun. It made me laugh, but it felt like they were hitting a wall because they weren't willing to go as specific as they needed to keep it surprising.
You know what's it's this tangent, sorry. Do you remember that Nathan For You episode where he's going to get undressed by a robot and thrown in front of a bunch of children?
No.
It's insane. Sometimes I wonder, like, how do you do it? Because that works so well. I really wonder about how people work with children and how you get kids on board with sketch or whatever, or how much you need to explain to them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think it's...
Look up that Nathan For You bit, guys. It's great.
But I do think that this was a problem of not deciding how to work with, how to engage with that. Like, I think that's a very good question, and I don't think that they had an answer to that question by the time it came time to like film this sketch. All right, should we move on to the next one? Okay, this is the Mastermind sketch. Your subject of specialty is really specific gossip from your mom. All right, let's chat about this one. What stood out to you guys? What did you think?
Great, specific.
Yes.
Game. Lovely to play. Great jokes.
I loved it.
Every time they found a new, like, just so subtle way to ask and answer a question, it was another joke. Like, just a lesson in how specifics are great.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Agreed completely. I think this was really fun. I wish it heightened more but in terms, I mean, I think it worked. There's no changes needed for the sketch, but I'd be curious about what like the next level of gameplay is. Like, I was excited when like the button of the button was like like devastating text. My dad responds thumbs up to.
Yeah.
Like, I could have lived in that more, and then I would have loved to see what a final round looked like in this. I mean, I'm not really sure if the specifics of Mastermind, but like what a call your friend would look like. What would be? I wonder if there were more things that could be done in terms of just like the arc of a TV show. Like,
they could have had more players. I would have either like just set it up where he was coming on right away, or have done 3 of them.
Yes,
because I was like, how long is this gonna be? Although maybe that's just because I'm thinking about it from a analysis point of view, but I thought that was really strange.
I do think that it was a long walk to the button between the end of the singular beat. And so at first I was like, oh, they're doing a second beat of this. And then it was the button. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I wonder if the button could have just happened a little faster. Like, bring it, like, literally just like having the character come in faster, jumping into it faster, even if it slightly broke the rules of how Mastermind goes. Like, I think that's my basically only note for this one. I think this is a great example of when we talk about dials and sketches. This is a great example of a sketch that had resting the game turned down to 0. It was just beat, 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 like specifics constantly. No real need to do anything else, right? Except for just playing itself. It reminded me a little bit structurally, or the shape of it, of the Key and Peele East Coast, West Coast sketch, where it's just like joke, 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 right? And that one they have a little beat in between, and then they go on joke, 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 joke. But this is one that I think was just so crystal clear, fantastic specifics, great setup. I love that they explored different pieces of types of things, like the idea that like, what's the thing that your mother said not to post on social media that Pat has a new gate is like a great, it's within that same game, but just like a fun alternate thing. Like it's sort of all adding up to this to this character of the mom too. And so I think that it's also a great way to practice thinking about point of view, justification, like all these things is like this unseen character of the mom is kind of what's tying it together, but in this way that's very relatable also just as a premise, because we're all sort of familiar with this genre of thing. Awesome. Anything else you want to say about this one? I thought it was really strong. I loved it. I thought it was great. Just faster way to get to the button, I think would have been my only note.
I will say one of the most famous sketches of all time in the UK is the two Ronnies Mastermind sketch. It was a pretty different game, but I was like, oh no.
I have to look up that one. I cannot remember that one.
But it's worth checking out.
All right, we're going to get back to that. All right, next one was Dad Swap.
Fascinating sketch.
Can I say an immediate record, because I'm a big fan of this podcast. Last week, Madeline, you were like, I got to keep an eye on whoever's writing these dad fucking sketches, and I tell them to cut it out. And I was like, Madeline, that seems pretty harsh. And then I watched this one. I was like, no, Madeline's 100% correct. What is this guy's deal with dad fucking?
I did love the way I think I was into it this time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knows why things work or don't work? It weirded me out a little bit, but I don't know. I was just thinking about your reaction last time, but you liked it this time?
It was the same guy, obviously. I think this is one where I was like, oh, how interesting. This felt more British to me, because the beat that it got to, I thought was so surprising that I was like, oh, yeah, logically that's like a pretty surprising but true heighten of this, where it was almost like, I think the whole point, which now that you reminded me that I said that, it makes me feel uncomfortable, but was to get there, whereas like I don't think the beginning was funny or worked at all.
I agree.
It did surprise me.
I think that this one, my note with this one would have been to shorten that because basically really what this is it felt like they were treating the dad swap of it all as the game. Really, that was just the base reality, right? So really the base reality is an app where you can swap dads. It's a heightened base reality, right? It's like it's certainly not a grounded base reality, but that's all that you need to get to the second part, which was the actual game, which is, oh no, I've accidentally designed an app where people keep having sex with their father's substitute figures, right? So like that's the actual fun of it. So if I think that right now, my guess is this is about like a page and a half of the first like dad swap idea. And I was sort of like, even if that were the whole sketch, I was sort of like, okay, we're not really getting anywhere with this. It's sort of just like, yep, swap this for this, this for this, this for this, got it. I would shorten that to basically max 3/4 of a page, absolute max, and then go into the fun of the character being like, I didn't really think this one through, because that's the fun part. The fun part is, oh, the spin-off of, or the accidental consequences of having designed this app. Does that, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I think it's a good assessment. A solid assessment.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to explore that part more, because it was very funny once you got to that second part. But just should have gotten there faster and then given us more time there. Anything else?
We have to look out to see if next week there's another dad fucking sketch by the same guy, and then we can really diagnose this guy.
Yeah. Look, we'll look into it. We're on the case, you know. All right. Can we go to this next one? The one about the masters, the little kiss.
Yes, because to me, another scene with like lots of heightening without really making sure that your first beat was locked up and justified.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. I felt more positively about this one, I have to say. But yeah,
the heightening. Well, no, the heightening was fun. It just was like only I don't really think there was like a strong idea here, or it was muddled. It was kind of muddled in the first beat or two.
Yeah, I think to me it felt like the sketch was like, there's some sketches that just like pivot off of like one specific thing, and I feel like just this like tidy little the little kiss was just like, to me, the thing that it was just like, if this is true, then what else is true, kind of going off in that direction. And I think that what was sort of tying it together to me was just that golfy way of talking and narrating. I I liked this one. I rewatched it just before we chatted, and I was like, oh, this was actually kind of tidier than I remembered it being as we were watching it the first time. I think that my spidey sense was tingling a little bit because I was worried it was going to be just another like sketch where it's like the joke is two boys kissing, which SNL US has done a lot, but that was not at all what this was.
I actually wrote down, hey, here's an example of a sketch where like the men are kissing and it's not the joke and it's pretty funny.
Yes, completely. Yeah.
I did think the game, it felt like maybe there were two games kind of happening.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it felt like everyone was just doing polite kisses that were not necessarily romantic. And then the second half of the sketch had more to do with the polycules. Both were kind of funny, but I feel like there's a note about like kind of keeping a like, again, why is everyone kissing? Like anytime you have a justification, the question you should ask yourself is like, why is this weird thing happening? And the answer could be anything. But if you don't answer it, it's hard to give like a clear pattern of where the sketch will go. That being said, I feel like you, Marina, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the sketch, so I don't need to note it to death, but it did feel like there were two games going on.
Well, and Nico, I totally agree with that. And I think like that justification just like came too late and they went with it and that was fine and it was still funny the way it heightened. But like it was also like, I think there is something funny about and like more absurd about like giving a cute little kiss. And then there's also a separately funny thing of golf announcers speaking about what's happening afterwards in a golfy way. And I think that it was both of those and neither of those. And then once they hit on the polycule stuff, fine, the heightening was good. But they really didn't go together and I really didn't rate it.
Yeah, no, totally fair. I think that's totally legit. I was just like, I just had a fun ride on that one. Honestly, I thought that the other thing that I liked about this one too, I will just add, is that there was that fun thing where it's like, it sounds like they're going to do the boy girl thing. And there was like a nice way where they reflect, like the way that was reflected in how they like pointed to each other. There was some like fun visual stuff to like keep it interesting in addition to just the talkiness of it all. Cause you could also imagine a version of this sketch where we don't see any of that at all. And we're just hearing the announcers. It obviously that's not what it is intended for, but I think that they did a really fun job of staging it in a way that felt really dynamic. And that's kind of challenging for a commentator-based sketch, I think. Cool. Anything else for this one, or shall we move on to a weekend update? Let's do it. Okay. There were two guest bits. The first one was the jockey and the horse. So thoughts on this one?
This was my only dislike, really. Maybe not my only dislike, but like this felt like real first thought. I've seen this before type thing. Like, what if the horse rode the man? And I don't know if it surprised me enough.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Just not a ton of like there weren't a ton of specifics. So like if your idea isn't super surprising, then you just have to find more fun specifics. And like there could have been something more particular about this dynamic than just horse is resentful of rider. And it didn't really feel like it did that. What do you think, Madeline?
I feel the same way. I was also wondering if the writer thought that the horse getting on the jockey would get a laugh. Because it was silent and then it was like the Pringles can, and I was like, I'm just so curious if they thought that would be funny. Because I was like, it's just not fun. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised to see this. Yeah.
It felt a little basic, I guess, right? All right. Yeah. I feel like there's not maybe even that much more to say about this one, honestly. I think that let's back up. If a student had brought this in, what would you kind of say to them? How would you sort of encourage them to like revise it for a second draft?
I mean, I think that there's something, since these guest pieces are often character bits. I think you could try to, if you're you're not just shooting this idea down right away, which is fine sometimes. It would be like what is it about playing a horse that there wasn't too much of a physicality, the horse or the rider, do you know? And so like what would be physically fun? Or if you were writing this for an actor, like if an actor pitched like, hey, I've got a great horse impression, like what are the things you could do to like liven that up physically? Like what's the fun of playing a horse? This felt like both characters were just in mascot suits, kind of,
Yeah.
rather than kind of doing. Maybe there's something more physical you could do, something more horse-like, something more jockey-ish. Maybe there's something you could expand to the physicality of it. But I think the premise is a little too first thought.
Yeah.
I might suggest like thinking in terms of like what is a human co-working relationship you could map it onto,
Right.
to maybe like find a specific like something more like from another context that might be more surprising in a jockey horse relationship,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would also imagine like, and I don't know if this would help, but like if you, as Nico was saying, if you were to like want to hone in on the like character of the horse a little more, is there a version of this where the jockey just isn't a part of it? Because then you don't have to play that dynamic. And it's just like, is the winner of the, oh, sorry, we expected the jockey would be here, but instead I see it's whatever, the horse. And then playing the character of the horse, like whether they're like, I don't know, whether they feel all washed up or whether they're whatever it is, like whatever that character is. Yeah, I feel like I wonder if the dynamic sort of trapped it in that first thought place. But yeah, okay, cool. And then okay, so the next desk piece was the Gen Z correspondents. Yeah,
some weird parallel thinking between the US and the UK, because they both had a Gen Z correspondent that seemed kind of indecipherable.
And I do think that this was a real nod to the Bowen, Aeed Bryant trend forecasters. But that felt more like those were characters, and this did not work for me. It was too unspecific. Yeah. Maybe I'm too old to understand, but it felt more like a bucket for these two performers to do things that they were good at, and it wasn't like the right bucket to put those things in.
I had this exact reaction. I was like, it felt really like, I think that there were two kind of labels that floated across, but that didn't actually pin it down. It was like, oh, it seems like you really like sound effects. And I was like, is that what this is? And then it was like, maybe this is just specific to the two of you. And I was like, oh, if that's what they're playing, like it came so late. And I was like, oh, I thought that the whole point was that they were telling us stuff about it was unclear to me what the world and the perspective of the writer was like, or the writers was here. Like I didn't know the point of view. I didn't know, like if the fun thing is like, okay, it's two Gen Z people who say they're identifying trends, but they're just really specific to them, then that's sort of a different game from Wacky Gen Z, which is just like not a game. That's just that's just the beginning of what a premise can be. So yeah, I think that I would just, if a student brought this in, I'd be like, what's your favorite part about this? Is the fun part a specific element of their performance? Is the fun part the idea of like trying to have a correspondent to represent a generation, full stop? Like, is the fun part like the fact
I think you guys have an astute dissection of this. This one made me laugh mostly because of nips and bomb threats, or whatever their tagline was, slipping nips and calling bomb threats. That made me laugh. Maybe I'm just more of a Gen Z than you two.
Must be.
But I do think you're hearing you guys break it down. I think you're exactly correct. And then comparing it to the sexless Gen Z person, the US version, which is again a similar like Gen Z core, who doesn't seem to make sense. There, the take is announced when Michael Chen announces them. This is a sex expert from Gen Z, and we know that Gen Z apparently is not having as much sex as everyone else, and they don't know what sex. And so that is a specific take, a specific philosophy that character has. Where this one, it is, oh, is this just you two weirdos doing this? And even though yes, it did make me laugh, I feel like it's a real concrete example of justification, or like what specific is that.
Yeah,
I also thought it wasn't practiced enough.
Oh, they were not in unison enough. That is true.
No, like
they were
that
not
had
in
to
unison
be
enough.
A little bit sharper for me. Sorry.
No, I think that's totally fair. I think
if you're gonna do something like that, it has to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt imprecise in a number of ways. But you know, yeah, those two performers are incredible, and I'm excited to see as they hopefully like how they continue to be used, because they're really amazing. So I'm excited to see more of them. Shall we move on to the next sketch? This was a drunk Peter Pan is mad at is mad at Wendy or tries to win Wendy back. This one did not work for me. Yeah, looks like across the board. We did not love this one. Nico, you give a thumbs down. Let's start with you. What were your thoughts on that?
I remember once the great Hunter Nelson was giving notes on a sketch. I had pitched an idea that was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles having like resentment toward their dad or acting like spoiled teenagers. And the response was like, that's already built into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like that you can't parody that aspect because that's already that's already in there. And like Peter Pan longing after Wendy after she's grown up is part of the Peter Pan. It didn't feel absurd enough. That felt like the normalcy of that world. And so even though my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sketch would have been hilarious, I think that Hunter note is like, if you can't, you're not heightening the situation too much if you're already playing in something that is part of that world. I mean, I think the crashing, the game of this felt like the crashing into things that felt absurd. But like, I think in every version of Peter Pan, he's got a creepy relationship with Wendy leaving his world and him coming back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with Nico. That's the perfect analysis of why this game isn't good enough. But I thought it was right there. I was just like, my jaw was on the floor the whole time, which is like, Wendy needed to be like, Peter, you have to grow up. And he goes, I can't. Like, why didn't they just do that?
Right. Right.
Right.
It is right there. Yeah. That is funny.
Nothing unusual.
Right. I think that my guess is the way this game was pitched was like kind of drunk Peter Pan berating Wendy, right? Because I agree, Nico. I think that the fun of seeing him fly was probably or
crash into things. It felt like a physical feat, even though I wasn't too into the sketch. I was like, oh wow, he did crash into that.
He really, I was like, did he cut his lip? Actually, there was one point where I was like, I think he actually looks like he's injured now.
No.
But like, I think that this one, the problem is that what the audience is looking at, until aside from the flying parts, is just like a man being mean to a woman. Like the stage picture of it is just like watching a drunk man being in someone's face. And it's sort of like, it's just like, nah. I mean, I think that with sketches, I think there's often a temptation to write like, it's this kid's thing, but messed up, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of sketches, especially starting out writing, like I've written sketches like everyone's written sketches like this. And often like those things aren't as surprising or interesting as they may have at first seem, especially when it comes to actually staging them. Because it's like, yeah, it's just a person being weird to a person and they just happen to be dressed as this character. You know what I mean? So it's sort of, I think that this one, that was the problem with this. That was one of the many problems with this one, I think. I think it was just a little bit of a bummer. I was impressed, however. If a student had brought this in and we were like, we can in fact stage this by having them fly around, I would have been like, okay, what's a more fun justification then? Because drunk is really not a fun justification basically ever, because it makes it no longer unusual, right? Like when you are drunk, you act differently. It is not unusual for somebody to be belligerent when they're drunk. The fact that this is Peter Pan doesn't really change that. So I would say, like, what is a fun, if you want to work backwards from, is like Peter Pan keeps crashing into walls. What's the most fun version of that justification for it?
Because I am not anti a sketch where the funny thing is crashing into wall, right? Like that's not the problem with it. That could have been fun. It's just that the second time he crashed into the wall wasn't more surprising than the first time because it was just because he was drunk, right? So but like funny crashing or surprising crashing could work.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You know what's funny? Sorry, this actually is maybe segueing a little bit into the what I thought were going to be my notes for the next one, which is Falling Down a Hill with Helen Birch.
Charmed, I'm sure.
At first, I loved the setup for this, and it made me laugh, and I was just like waiting to see her tumble down a hill, and I wanted to see it 100 times. Like I wanted to see 100 different ways that she would accidentally start to tumble down a hill. And instead it was just a single beat sketch, right? So I think in a way, this one, I was like, I wish that they had that same commitment to this physical bit, that like
Especially because it was a filmed sketch too,
Yeah.
right? I did laugh when she fell, but I agree with you 100%, Marina, that like she should have fallen 100 times, especially after she's like, I resent the name change because I talk about serious issues, and then they should have shown like 8 clips of her talking about the most serious shit and then falling down a hill. Do you know what I mean? The situation in Darfur,
Yeah.
like, here's what I think about Prince Andrew,
I also think her like tumbling out of frame would have been fun. Like the physically falling down the hill wasn't even the most fun part to me. Like I think that the idea of her just like the idea of a person desperately trying not to fall down a hill because they've fallen down a hill so many times is like so funny. It is like a high wire act of a sketch, like playing with something where you're almost building suspense, but suspense is the narrative version of it. But what you're doing is still kind of suspense adjacent in a sketch. I think this was a delightful idea, and I was just disappointed with the shape of the sketch because like that one fall was just like, oh no, I just want a ton of this. I want to just see her going down the hill. Anyway, sorry, I realized I jumped into that, but I think that it's basically there's something about the physicality of Peter Pan and the kind of lack of exploring the physicality of this one that feels sort of hand in hand to me in some way that I'll have to keep thinking about. Felt like not the most strategic usage of like physical stuff, I guess. I don't know. Other thoughts for either of those two sketches? No. Okay, great. Awesome. And then the last one of the night, this, oh gosh. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Madeline, go ahead. What are you thinking?
No,
Okay.
No, I can, okay. It's just such a long walk,
Such
right?
a long walk. Yeah.
Like maybe just too many things to set up. I want to talk through like how they could have gotten to this idea cleaner. Maybe I'll just try to pitch the idea because we haven't even said what it is yet. But it's a old black and white movie from the 1930s where a man and a woman are each other's beards, and they're going to introduce themselves as a couple to his mother. But it's plotty. But his boyfriend, who is extremely
cartoonishly gay,
yes, just over the top, comes in, and then they proceed to play no beats of trying to play this out or hide it. There's a like animated shenanigan with the cake where a literal foot
sound effect
comes into play.
Gen Z loves sound effects apparently.
And then they bring in one lesbian parallel, and then the sketch is over. So yeah, all set up, no jokes.
Yes. The other thing I
laughed. I laughed, and I was like,
I liked the character. I was just like, there has to be a faster way to get to this.
There has to be a better. I bet you this was written for the character, that's the same person who does Diana and did the Gen Z thing. I bet they were like, I have this cartoonishly gay 1930s character. Where do we put them? But it did make me laugh, and also the lesbian when the lesbian counterpart came in also made me laugh. But it did feel like they were kind of doing. It was like a little bit like a birdcage situation,
right?
Rushed through in 3 minutes.
Right. I mean, I think that the other logistical problem I had with this one.
Did you think it was his mom?
Yes, exactly. I thought that was his mom. When the character comes in,
so confused.
It's a sketch, right? So like, I was like, okay, this is like, the broad brushstrokes character, mom, and then I was confused. And as we said, confusion is kind of the enemy of your fun premise that you're playing with. And then it only got more confusing from there, right? So I think that basically, if a student brought this in, my question to them would be the question that we always ask, which is like, which part of this is the most fun for you? And if it's like the idea of this specific character trying to be discreet, then I would say like, okay, let's find a different setup for this. If the fun of this was the idea of like the mom is actually like a little saucier than they expect, then maybe that's a different setup for this sketch, right? Like, or maybe like the fun is like the mom comes in and clearly like she's hiding something. There's any number of ways to play it, but I don't think I could tell you. I agree it probably was that character, but I don't think that's the right setting for this character at all.
It reminds me of. It was maybe a tangent. In Kimmy Schmidt, Titus goes to learn how to act straight from like an acting teacher. And I wonder if this character could have taught that class or something. The character, like, so clearly queer in some kind of way, very confident going, no one will figure this one out.
I think it could have been like a historical look back onto forgotten queer figures or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that way we just could see what this person is up to back in the 30s.
Yeah,
Like that might have been
that's fun,
fine.
and that also gives like whatever, like you can have like to make the audience feel more comfortable. You have like a very revered figure, right? And also this person,
Right. Yes, exactly. I think that's great. I think that juxtaposition of like the revered figure and then this goofy character. I think that would have been a really fun way to make this character pop more.
Just as important, out and proud.
Yes,
early on.
Right? Nobody talks about them though, right? But yeah, I think really interesting though, kind of just setup wise. I think I love this episode because there were a number of sketches that genuinely made me laugh that I thought were really fun premises, really great. But I thought that the handful of ones that didn't work or that had bigger issues were such different issues from each other, like a little too small, a little too big, a little too. I just think this was a really instructive episode. But that wasn't instructive in the sense of like you're sitting back and being like, okay, great, I learned something. Like it was actually enjoyable to watch and to learn and to think about like what could have made each of these stronger. So I was very excited by this episode.
I think they also fit in maybe like one or two more sketches than normal. There were some shorter ones, which is fun. I think there were just more scenes.
That's true. The pre-tapes were pretty short. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, great. Well, I'm really excited to see how the next episode goes. But guys, this was so much fun to do. I'm so glad we got to chat about this. Let's go through and do our plugs. Nico, we're going to end with you because I want you to send us on our way with your extra special plug. So Madeline, go ahead, take it away. What's your
same plug as always? I do story coaching. If you want some help with anything you're writing, let me know and I would love to help you.
Yay. Amazing. My plug, as always, spread the word about this show and about the Unusual Things book that is currently in progress. It really helps to show that there's interest and to gather people on board. So if you're watching this and enjoying it, please do spread the word, share, comment, and give us a review. All right. And Nico, take it away. What is your very special plug?
I've got a podcast. I'm rebooting my podcast, Copaganda, where we watch cop movies and talk about policing in America. Both Madeline and Marina have been on. And so we're showing that's going to be on Wednesdays. Get that wherever you get podcasts.
You absolutely must listen. It's so great. It's such a great, whether or not you've seen the movies, it's so great. It's like, it's just fantastic and really genuinely interesting. It is funny and it is genuinely interesting and thought-provoking and like you will love it. So please listen to Copaganda. Big Copaganda fans over here. Fans of the podcast Copaganda. Oh my gosh. All right. Well guys, thank you so much for doing this. This was so much fun and I'm so excited to talk about more sketches with you as always.
Thanks, Marina.
All right. Bye, guys. Talk to you later.